Hey, this is Mary from Camaj Fiber Arts, and today I'm going to show you how to dye a silk lap. And this is about a 4-ounce piece of lap. And what silk lap is, it's layers and layers of silk, mulberry silk, pulled over a big frame. And they usually use these for the inside of bats, but for a spinner, we see an opportunity to spin a really cool yarn. So first what we need to do is we need to do a pre-soak. Now with silk, organic acids don't damage silk like lemon juice and vinegar and citric acid, but inorganic acids will. On the other hand, if you soak silk in acids for a long time, they can get what's called a scroop. And what the scroop is kind of a crunchy feeling on the fiber. So we are not going to put any acid in our soaking water. Another thing is you can use cold or hot water. It doesn't matter because silk doesn't felt. It doesn't have the scales that wool does. So there's no damage of felting. So cold, hot, doesn't matter. Go from cold to hot, hot to cold, and you won't felt it. All right, so what I do first is I put a little bit of soap in my soak water. And the only reason I do that is because soap will break up the water tension and will give you more vivid colors and help the dye bond to the fiber better. Okay, so I have water and soap, and this is a big, I think it's called a chafing dish. I got it from a restaurant supply store. And I also got this really neat insert that has holes, so I'm going to put that down inside. And then I'm going to lay my silk in. My dogs are fighting. Play fighting. You can probably hear them growling. And I'm going to push the silk down. And then when it's done, I could just lift up this top pan and it'll drain. So it's kind of handy. All right, so I'm going to set that back down in there. I'm going to push this silk in the water. Now, silk takes a while to get wet, or to get wet all the way through. And it can take about 12 to 24 hours. So once I get this in here, I'm just going to let it sit probably overnight, because it's the evening right now. It's about 6 p.m. So I'm going to just let this sit overnight, and then I will take care of it in the morning. One more thing about silk that is different than wool is silk can handle a little bit of alkaline. It doesn't degrade the fiber, but it will degrade your wool. So just to kind of let you know that you can use any kind of soap you want. You can use Dawn, really any kind of soap. Alkali, acid, doesn't matter. Well, let's not do the acid, but any alkali soap, any neutral soap would be fine. Okay, we're back from soaking our silk all night. So I had it in the pan and I pulled it out. Remember, we had this strainer. So that was really handy. So I'm just going to pull it out and set it to the side. Now I have about 1 inch of water. I did pour some out because I had probably about 3 inches, but I want a low immersion. So I have about 1 inch, and I left the soap in the water because remember, the soap breaks the surface tension and will help the dye become a little more vivid. First, I'm going to show you the pH of the water. And then we're going to add the vinegar. And then I'm going to show you how much vinegar we need to add to get to the pH that we need. So I'm just going to hold this in here for a few seconds. Now, remember, when you dye with acid dyes, you need the acid because you need the chemical reaction of the acid to make the fiber more reactive to accepting the dyes. If you don't have any acid in your dye, it's not going to adhere to the fiber permanently. So that's about a 7. So that's neutral, and that was unicorn scour, and that's a neutral soap. So I am going to add about 1/8 of a cup of vinegar. So we'll start slow, and then we'll see how much that changes the water. Now you can put your vinegar in last, you can put your vinegar in first. If you have a high acid ratio in your water or level, it's going to make the dye strike pretty quick on your fiber. So if you want a slower, if you want it to strike a little bit slower, you will want to put the acid in a little bit later and give the dye chance to absorb into the fiber. So it all, it just depends on what you want to do and what kind of look you're going for. Okay, so that's probably, what do you think? Let's see. That might be about a 5. Tell you what, let's add another 1/8 of a cup. So what I'm shooting for is about 4.5. You can even go down to 4, and that's the acid in the water. And acid dyes need a certain level of acid to dye. You may want to check your manufacturer of your dye, because some dyes strike better at a lower acid and some dyes strike better at a higher acid. So you'll just have to check your manufacturer. Like Lancet dyes have their own special pH range. Alrighty. Yeah, there we go. So that's probably more about what we're looking for, like a 4. So I put in 1/4 cup of vinegar to 1 inch of water with a little bit of neutral soap in it. And then I'm going to put this strainer back in. Now, alkali does not harm silk. So if you want to, you could use Dawn, you can use borax, you can use detergent, whatever you want, but alkali will damage your wool fibers. So kind of know your fibers, know your levels of what you're putting in it that can cause some damage. Okay, so that's about 1 inch of water. So I have the water heated up. Now remember, with silk, you don't want to go over 185 to 190 degrees of heat, because it takes away the sheen of the silk. So just kind of be a little conscious of that. With wool, you can go a lot higher, but with silk, it takes away the sheen. I already made some dye stocks, so I have these kind of in my arsenal, but if you are going to mix dry dyes, use a filter mask, a small particle filter mask, because those small particles will get in your lungs and eventually they will cause lung disease. So please, please be very safe. Do not use dry, or don't mix up dry dyes in your kitchen, because those dye particles are so small, they float everywhere. And so after you do it, take a wet paper towel and wipe down your countertops, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So if you're going to be cooking on anything, any surface that you're mixing dyes on, probably isn't a good idea. Okay, so I don't put citric acid or vinegar in my dyes. I usually put it in the water, but there's so many different ways to do it. You could do acid in your dyes, acid in your water, put your acid in first, put your acid in last. It just depends on what you're going for. Just remember, the more acid, the quicker the dye is going to strike. So there may be some white spots in this because the dye might strike too fast, and I'll just turn it over and re-dye it. So I like to dye my silk laps all sorts of crazy colors, and first I'm going to add some red. And this is just the way I'm going to dye it. You can do like a rainbow pot and do stripes, but I really like to get a mix of colors. And remember, when you put your dyes in, you want to see what colors are going to mix to make another color. Like I put red and blue in because it's going to make a purple. And I'm not sure if you're going to want to put your hands in the water with this kind of heat. So remember that one video I did with those barbecue gloves, that you can touch hot water and it's not going to burn your hand. Now, since silk doesn't felt, ooh, I can manhandle this stuff all over the place. That's one reason I kind of like dyeing with silk. And I have a couple little gadgets that you can use to get some really cute dye techniques. So I have like a little vinegar bottle I got from my restaurant store down the street, so you could like shake that on and you can get little drops you can use now remember to put your mask on if you're going to do this. This is a salt shaker with a little bit of, very little bit of dye powder in it. Let's see, what else? Oh. Okay, so I have a little bit of yellow. I like to put yellow in because I like the way it pops. Put it on the white spots in that part. And then when the yellow hits the teal, it turns kind of green, so it's really a lot of fun. And the silk lap has layers and layers and layers of silk. And what I find with the silk lap is sometimes the dye may diffuse between the layers and not be quite as dark as you put it on. So make a 1% dye stock solution, and then you can go from there. If your dye is too saturated with dye particles versus the number of fibers that you have in your pot, that's when it doesn't exhaust and your fiber is going to bleed all over the place. So and that you know what, that comes just with experience of dyeing. I'll put a little bit in there. So it just takes time, trial and error. Okay, let's put a little bit more yellow down here, and I might just put a little dab of, no, that's not working. There we go, okay, it's almost gone. But there's so many cool things you can do with dyes and so many little tools that you can use to get the colors that you want. Now by putting the acid in first, you can see the colors aren't running. The colors are kind of staying put where I put them because it's striking really fast. If I put my colors in before I put the citric acid or vinegar acid in, the colors would just go all over the place. But from experience, I kind of know different colors, and you can see how the colors I put in blended to become another beautiful color. And if you want all the colors to blend together and become brown, if that's your goal, that's cool too. But I'm gonna let this sit, oh, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes or so, probably until it's exhausted. Then I'm gonna turn it over because I have a feeling the back side won't be, let's see. Well, I don't want to move it too much because I want the colors to kind of stay put. I don't want it to blend to become one huge color. I kind of want those colors to kind of be there. So we'll come back and I'll show you what the rest of it looks like. This is after about a half hour of soaking, but as you can see, because of the layers of the silk lap, it almost turned white. It just kind of soaks into the layers and just always turns out a different color. It's always kind of a surprise. I had put some foil over the top to keep the steam in. So what I'm going to do now is turn it over and let's see what we have. In fact, I might put some more dye on the kind of the white part there. Maybe I'll soak through. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over. Now it's one piece. Remember to wear your heat gloves when you put your hands in water like that. Okay, I love that green. That is so pretty. Okay, so it's kind of muted. I think what I'll do is maybe take put my mask on, shaker. It's not very much left. I just love that teal. I don't know, or something about that. Love it. That little yellow. Turn it that emerald, beautiful emerald green. Okay, a little bit white right there. Let's see, I think I will add a little bit more red. If your bottles leak, sometimes these squirt bottles leak because they're just so cheap. I put tape on it, but that's not helping. But there's an electrical tape. There's no adhesive to it, but you can wrap it around and that will hold it. Alrighty. I like to get all the areas dyed. just hate to see any part that's not beautiful. That's just me, but you can do it any way you want. Okay, so I think this is going to turn out pretty muted, but it's still going to be pretty. I will put the foil back on top, let it sit for another half hour or so, and then you can rinse silk directly in cool water if you want, because it will not felt. You can use a Pro Soft, I think it's called Pro Soft, or like a fabric softener to bring back the softness, but it'll be soft because we haven't we didn't put too much acid in it. And again, if you put too much acid in it, remember you're going to get that scroop where you get kind of that, it gets kind of a rustly, kind of hardish feeling, but we didn't put too much acid in it. All right. You can find my silk laps at camajfiberarts.com under the spinning section, and we do group sales once a month. Please join us, and thank you for watching. Bye.